Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from August Burns Red, Season of Surrender, out June 5th on Fearless Records. This album has 11 tracks, 45 minutes in length, and this is the band's 11th full-length studio album. They are an American metalcore band. As far as the design of this record, oh boy, there's no intro, there's no easing you in, there's no opening up the door and allowing you to experience the record at your own pace. The moment you press play, it feels like you're already in the middle of the album. Legions is the opening track, and it lets you know exactly what this record's going to be all about. Heaviness, aggression. This album is relentless from that standpoint, and it starts off immediately in your face. Now, when you have an album with this kind of dominant heaviness all the way throughout, it's very common to see a very linear development on a song-by-song basis, and even some repetition because of the way the heaviness impacts the record almost flattens it out a little bit. It's not the case with this album. The songwriting is excellent. They have a few features on this record as well, and then the elements that give this album heaviness are not necessarily the same ones song in and song out. Putting all of this together, you end up with a very heavy album, but a very dynamic, fluid, and engaging record top to bottom. Great design, a design that really enhances the heaviness and that heavy experience that the band wants to put forward right from the start all the way until the end. Once you get into the sound of this record, I mentioned already the heaviness, and I think this is an album that definitely is going to be talked about due to that same heaviness. But it's also important to mention that that heaviness comes from different places, and I think that is a key formula as far as how this album works so well, and it doesn't feel repetitive, and it doesn't really overburden the listener across 45 minutes. I feel like the heaviness on this album really comes from three different places. First and foremost, this is a very throwback sounding album as far as August Burns Red is concerned. Having a more of a throwback sound brings in a much heavier August Burns Red sound, and I think that's the first step in order to understand the overall heaviness of the record. The band is not trying to move forward into a more melodic sound, which is what I find with a lot of metalcore bands. They rather went in a different and opposite direction by going back towards the roots of the band with a more aggressive, a more raw, a more in-your-face, relentless style approach, and the heaviness that comes along with it. The other aspect that plays a role in the heavy sound of this record is that this album has a lot of deathcore influences in it. It has those influences in the vocals, and it definitely has those influences in the sound. Not a modern deathcore style overall sound approach or influences, because this is not an album that brings theatrical pieces or orchestral pieces into the mix, but it does have a more modern deathcore production style at times, while bringing some older school deathcore elements into how the songs are delivered. Specifically when you look at some of the breakdowns leading into the breakdowns, and even some of the overall riffage and soundscapes that this album has. Last but definitely not least, there's also some technical death metal elements on this record, and you're going to see them right away in a song like Legions that open up the album. That song has a lot of technical death elements in it. Having a more technical side to the guitar sound allows them to be melodic, to be groovier, and sometimes to be just technically heavy. And that adds a lot of fire into the overall combustion that it is this album, in terms of where the songs can go, in terms of what the songs can offer, and the overall palette of these same tracks. I think mixing these three different styles of heaviness, if you will, definitely gives them a lot more to work with, and allows the album to stay consistent, to stay cohesive with that overall underlying heavy experience, but still show you different sides of the exact same coin. This makes the album more mobile, makes the album more fluid, more dynamic, and even more rich in texture, not just as far as the guitar sound is concerned, but overall sound experience. But the guitars are definitely one of the key factors on this record. I thought the guitar playing on this album is excellent. You get a little bit of everything for everybody. You're going to get really heavy breakdowns, which I'm sure a lot of fans of the band are going to enjoy and really appreciate. You're going to get some really cool guitar solos that add some melody, add some flash, add some openness to the song, especially when you have really heavy tracks. It's important to create some moments within the songs where the track opens up a little bit more. With the guitar solos, they definitely do that. There are some groovier licks, there are some more melodic licks, and then obviously those more chuggier ones as well. So it's an album that from a guitar standpoint, you kind of get a little bit of everything that you could possibly expect, not just from August Burns Red, but from almost any metalcore style band. And this album executes those nuances really well, not just on a song-by-song basis. And not like they took just, okay, this song is going to be chuggier, or this song is going to be groovier, or this song is going to have the heaviest breakdowns. No, they kind of brought all of that to the table, and they were not afraid of mixing those elements, even at times if they might seem very different from one another. They were not afraid of mixing them together in the same songs in order to create different experiences throughout the track, not just on a track by track, but throughout the track, giving the songs a lot more life and a lot more energy as well. The drum sound on this record is excellent. I felt it like it was powerful, it had size, and it definitely helps with the overall, not just volume of the songs, but the overall presence that the songs have. And for a band that might be performing some of these songs in much larger venues, having that drum sound that really emphasizes the overall perspective of the tracks works really well, because it doesn't force you to have to add some orchestrations into the songs in order to create that size, in order to create that presence. They went a little bit more old school, allowing the drums and guitars together, but definitely with the drums leading, creating that overall opulent experience that helps the songs have this much larger than life perspective. Last but definitely not least, when it comes to the vocals, I felt like Jake was phenomenal. Outside of the cameos, because this this album, I should say, has quite a few features on it. The Devil Wears Prada, Make Them Suffer, just to name a few. This album definitely offers a few more textures as far as the vocal performance is concerned, but Jake's performance on its own would have been enough to carry this record. He does a phenomenal job top to bottom, incredible range. I think this is perhaps the most raw, the most unfiltered we've seen of him in a very long time. He doesn't hold back at all, and he's not afraid to take some chances, some gambles with his own vocals, with his own range, totally using it as an instrument on this album, not just to deliver the lyrics, but to really deliver an important performance, a standout performance. And by the way, since I'm talking about lyrics, the lyrics on this album are excellent. There's so many cool catchphrases, so many cool hooks, not necessarily from a melodic vocal delivery standpoint, but just from a lyrical content standpoint. This album really stands out when you look at all the different parameters: lyrics, vocals, sound, guitars, drums, execution, track listing. There's nothing about this album that doesn't feel like it fits perfectly together in order to create one of the band's best records, if not the band's best album to date. Season of Surrender, out June 5th. Now, before we close off this video, let me just give you my top 3 favorite songs on this record. And I have to start off with Legions, because I've mentioned this song quite a bit. It's the opening track. It features Mike of the Devil Wears Prada on vocals. Aggressive, heavy from the start. You press play on this record, this song feels like it's already halfway through the way that it opens up. And that really puts you on your toes, and it lets you know that, hey, this album is going to take 0 breaks, it's going to take 0 prisoners. So this is a very aggressive song from that standpoint, and it's also a song that it introduces some more technical death metal elements into the picture. There's some melodic elements as well. There's some more straightforward riffage as well, but the technical aspect of the sound of this track, the technical death metal influences in this track, definitely rise to the surface, and from the get-go set this track apart from everything else that you're gonna hear. It's a very specific sounding song where the guitars have a lot more richness to their execution and therefore to their sound, and that's what really helps sell this song immediately. That technical death metal influence really puts a stamp on Legions. Then you have a song like Cerebral Malfunction featuring Make Them Suffer. Now, this track has a great bass opening, and that's where you start to see the fingerprint of the song, because every song is going to be heavy. Now you have to change the way you present that heaviness and maybe change some other attributes around it. For Cerebral Malfunction, opening up with a bass lick is how they change things up and how they change the perspective of the listener, allowing the song, because of that, to immediately feel different from all the other tracks in its vicinity. It's a great song. It's groovier, perhaps one of the grooviest songs on this album. I think the bass definitely helps with that overall grooviness of the track. Vocally incredibly dynamic. A lot of energy comes into this song from a vocal standpoint, moving really well and allowing the overall essence of the guitar sound to move around with it. A track that has heaviness, grooviness, I would go as far as to say even some melodic melancholy into the guitar texture sound, making it an incredibly guitar rich song, a very guitar focused, a very guitar driven track with great vocals, great dynamic vocals to match it. Last but not least, Whispers Like Splinters. This track has a great melodic undertone. Around of all of the heaviness that this track provides and around all of the heaviness that the album offers, having a song that really has a melodic underbelly sets itself at a different plateau. It makes the song really stand out because that melodic underbelly, while not necessarily rising all the way to the top, is incredibly noticeable throughout the entire song. It allows the heaviness to stay on top of it. It allows the heaviness to really drive the song, but it also allows the heaviness to not feel as cumbersome because of that melodic undertone to it. The fluidity of the vocals definitely match the sound, the experience, and the flow of the song. It's a very dynamic song, both on the musical side and on the vocal side, and the two elements match perfectly from the beginning all the way to the end. A very cool track, a track that is heavy but minimizes that heaviness with the overall melody that it has. This is it, August Burns Red with Season of Surrender, once again out June 5th on Fearless Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next one. Take care, guys.